Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared, and today we are going to take these two knives apart, the Demco 8020 and the Cold Steel Engage with the Atlas lock. We're going to take them apart and we're going to compare the locking systems and how they work. But first, let's just go over a couple obvious differences while I have them both in hand. The lock on the Shark Lock is a lot higher up, so you do not have to change grips very much to disengage it. It's very easy to function with you in the same grip. You know, you're pretty much using it while cutting. With the Atlas lock, you do have to change grips unless if you do the thumb drop, which you can easily do without really changing too much of your grip. But if you want to use your pointer finger, you have to kind of grip down the blade, get it right there, and then swing it shut. So, not a huge deal, but it is an obvious difference because this lock is so much lower down on the handle. Now, another thing is the detent and the closing strength. This is almost non-existent. Like it has a little bit of pressure holding it shut, but not very much. The Demco has a lot. You can see how far I got to open it before it will stop closing itself. So the closing strength of the spring, or what they use as a detent system, is a lot weaker on the cold steel. Is it a big deal? No, but it is a big difference. Another thing, really quick, the tolerances of the scales and how it's built is far tighter on the Demco. The Demco, just taking it apart, it is a bit more of a struggle getting the scales off over these pins. It is very, very tight. The tolerances on the Demco 8020 is just insane. This, you take off these screws and the pivot screw, the show scale and the liner pops right off. It's very easy to take apart, extremely easy to take apart. The Demco is still easy to take apart, but the tolerances are just so tight. All the parts are fit together very tightly. Other than that, these have so many similarities. Even the shape and how it has the Demco's kind of forward finger choil where you can get up nice and tight to the blade. The Cold Steel has the same thing. There are so many similarities to this, but there are still some differences. And we're going to get to the insides right now. Let's check them out. All right, now that we got these taken apart, one big difference right off the bat is the size of the spring. This is the Demco 8020, and this is the Atlas lock. First, let's check out the Atlas lock, because a lot of you have already seen the Demco. They are very similar, but they still have quite a few differences. Now, the spring goes right inside there, which pushes up this metal bar. And then you have two stop pins here. So it wedges over the stop pins behind the tang of the blade. Now, if pressure is applied to the tang of the blade, you can see how it's going to swing. It's going to put pressure onto this bar, which is also putting pressure onto the stop pin, which is putting pressure again onto the blade, which I thought was pretty cool. It's kind of sandwiched in between the blade itself. So it's putting pressure onto the bar, onto the pin, back onto the blade, which is pretty cool how they did that. Now, if you pull this bar down, compressing the spring, because remember the spring would be right here in this groove, pushing tension up onto this metal bar. As you pull down, it moves out from the path of the blade, or of the tang of the blade, and now it can swing shut. Then we have this little stop pin right here that hits right behind the edge, preventing it from hitting anything on the edge from the inner workings of the knife. So the tension that creates the detent is going to be this bar right here, pushing up into the tang of the blade, and you just basically have to push down, or the tang of the blade pushes down onto this pin, pushing down, compressing the spring, moving it out of the way, so that it can open. But it just, once it gets past that little tiny part right there, it's already passed. So that's why the detent is so weak, because it's just this little tiny notch. Not right there, it's on there. So it's just that little tiny part right there that it has to get past. It just has to push past this little tiny cutout right there, the spring tension. And then as it opens up, bang, locks into place, and then it's locked open. It is an extremely strong locking system in the way it's built. Now, if we grab the 80-20, I have a little bit right there just because the way it's done, in order for me to have the blade in there, I had to have something in there because the actual pivot comes in through this direction. Anyways, so the spring pushes tension on this bar right here up behind the tang of the blade. So in order to break this one, if you put pressure on the spine, you have to break past this metal bar and this pin right here, breaking both of these off. Now, as you pull down, and because the spring goes in here, as you compress the spring, you move it out of the way of the tang of the blade. The blade can swing shut and then close. And then this falls right into that groove right there like that. So that's what's stopping it from hitting anything on the inside of the blade and what creates the detent. So the reason why this one has so much more of a stronger detent is because it has to push this whole thing down right there. The groove right here is a lot bigger. So as it pushes down, gets out of the way of the path, and now it can swing open, letting the spring push the steel bar up into place. But as you can see, they are very, very similar in the way they are, except for the way the detent is set up and the location. But both of them look incredibly, incredibly strong. This almost looks like it might be a little bit stronger. But it's hard to say. It's very difficult to say. The liners, let's look at that really quick because that is another big difference. So we have the liner on the Demco, which is a partial liner. This goes right over that, just like that. This is a steel liner that comes off, that goes on the Demco. Now, the cold steel actually has a full liner. Now, I don't think that's going to create any more strength over the Demco, but it will definitely add weight. And the reason why I say it won't really create any more strength, because this is still the same thickness as this, and it just has to sever the pins out of this area right here, as those two stop pins fall into that. Similar to this, the stop pin right here and right here, or this one right here too, falls into these grooves. So that's pretty similar in strength there, but the Demco's definitely a little lighter since it's only a partial liner, while this one is a full one. But very similar in the way they work, but there are still some differences. This one wedges in between the tang of the blade, creating tension on the other part of the tang near where jimping would go, or near the spine of the blade. This one puts all the tension up onto this metal bar, or the metal pin onto the stop pin. And then beyond that, if it would have to break the pin and this metal bar in order to fail. This one, it has to break the metal bar, the pin, beyond beyond the spine of the blade. Pretty cool how it works. Now, I know the 80-20 is USA made, on bearings. It's extremely well done. The tolerances are very tight, but considering the money difference, this is very, very well done. I mean, I can even pick it up. I mean, this thing is just super solid. I can even disengage it. I don't have as much fear of it coming apart, but that also has a lot to do with the direction to which the pivot comes through, because in this case, it comes through on this side. With this one, it actually goes through on the show side, going down that way. Nice big pivot. And you can see it is a captured pivot on, this is for the Demco, the 80-20. and that would go down this direction. That's why I have to have that screw there. But, considering this thing is extremely, extremely well done. I do like what acts as a detent on this a little bit better, but it's not a huge difference. But you can feel this one wanting, or the spring tension pushing down on the blade a little bit stronger into the closed position on the Demco. But after putting them back together, the one big difference, in taking them apart is the direction the pivot screw goes through, or, the direction, because the show side on the cold steel has the screw head. On this side, it has the actual pivot. So you have to flip it over and unscrew the lock side, or sorry, the clip side, even though both sides could be a clip side. But anyways, you guys get what I'm saying. You have to take off this side in order to push the pivot through to take off the show side scale. With the cold steel, you just take that screw out and the other little screws and you can pop it right out. The hardware's bigger on the Demco. I am happy to have them both and to get to show you guys the inner workings of these and how they function and the actual differences of the lock, even though there is so many similarities. There you guys go. Love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.